Let me go ahead and introduce Ranen. I'm Jason Bruns, by the way. I'm the director of the Minnesota State Engineering Center of Excellence, and thank you all for coming. We try to offer this twice a year, once in the spring and once in the fall. And I'll mention at least the fall date if you want to write this down, if you have a notebook handy. February, or the spring one, will be February 22nd, 2024, and more details on that will be coming out as we get that decided upon. But today on the 28th, we're excited to have Ranen to come and speak to us about supercharging student engagement with the science of human attention. Really appreciate him coming and being part of this. We're going to have a video. We're taking a video of this as well, so we'll have that available onto our website. So those that are looking for professional development and or your colleagues looking to be able to watch this as well, you want to share this with your colleagues, please do. You can go onto our website. We'll have that be able to share that for you as well, and then they can contact me for that professional development hours or time, and that's at jason.bruns@mnsu.edu. Otherwise, you can go to our Center of Excellence, Engineering Center of Excellence website, and you can surely look me up. So, and now to our featured guest, Ranen. I thank you very much for being here and being part of this. Dr. A.L. Ranen McLanahan is with Keen Partners in Engineering Unleashed, a Kern Foundation resource. He started in industry working on a floating factory ship in Alaska in 1999. How about that, huh? From there, he's done conceptual modeling work, microelectrical, mechanical system design, and R&D work through a device prototyping and innovation center that he co-founded in 2013. He has served as a faculty member of general and mechanical engineering for 12 years with the UW-Platteville Engineering Partnership, and worked as an industrial consultant and research affiliate through his company Critical Flux LLC for the last 6 years. In 2016, Ranen was invited to the Washington State Capitol to give a workshop on solidarity to the Wisconsin legislatures at the state capitol. Ranen has earned multiple education awards and nominations for his teaching, outreach, and innovations. So for our presentation today, Ranen will be discussing really understanding human attention can be slippery to pin down, and it flows and ebbs throughout the day, week, and semester. Sometimes when we need to capture it most, it also becomes the most vaporous and difficult. So what are the mechanics behind human attention? What are their ways so we can capture it consistently? And how can we use it in our face-to-face and virtual classrooms? So thank you and welcome all. And Ranen, I'm going to let you run with this, and I'm going to step out of your way and I will put it on mute. Those entering in, please be sure that you're on mute yourself as well. So thank you, and thank you, Ranen, for doing what you're doing. There will be time left over at the end for some Q&A for Ranen, so make sure you write those down and think about those. Otherwise, we can throw them in the chat and we'll visit with those in the chat. Let's go from there. Ranen, floor is yours.
All right, thank you so much, Jason, for the introduction and for setting this up. So I am Ranen, like it's raining outside, McLanahan. I was named by a hippie, if you must know, Ranen. And this is an informal presentation, so at any point in time, please feel free to shout out questions, shout out ideas. Let's discuss these ideas. And there's a lot coming at you here, so if you want to grab some notes, feel free. I appreciate everyone who was willing to turn on their camera. It's okay if not everyone does, but getting a little bit of visual feedback is always helpful as a presenter. So I'm a mechanical engineer by training, and I'm currently a program director at the Kern Foundation, which is located just right next door to you in Wisconsin, about 30 minutes west of Milwaukee. I'm sitting in one of our buildings right now. And this is a talk that was developed many years ago. It's developed, it's evolved since then, but it is about that question. If I'm a student sitting in a classroom, why should I care? Why what I'm learning, why does it matter? What is the relevance and significance of what my instructor is teaching me? And if I can't see those things, it's very, very hard to capture my attention. So we're going to be looking at the literature, we're going to be looking at the science, we're going to be looking at applications and examples for this, and we're going to be creating a few of our own ideas as well, as much as we can in a virtual environment. So when anyone would like to invite me to do so, I will push this start button and we will kick this presentation off. All right, that sounds good. So let me load up a typical semester. I know we have both higher education and high school instructors and a wide group. But what I would like to do is just load up a typical kind of college semester. This has applications for high school as well, but let's go ahead and load it up. And if you notice, the boredom maxed out before the lectures. I hate it when that happens. But imagine for a moment you are a student coming in to study something. In this particular example, it's engineering. But it could be science, it could be English, it could be philosophy, something you're really excited to study. And you're excited to study this because you're thinking about doing this as a career. You're going to take the skills that you're learning in this particular class, and they're going to be the foundation of your career. And so it's always exciting to start at a new semester. And I'm going to let my instructor go ahead here and go ahead and welcome everyone to class. Class, welcome to class. I know you're all excited to be here. I mean, look at all of your shining faces. There you are. Everyone's happy. Let's go ahead and begin this particular class just with some basic equations that you may need in order to be successful. And here's a plot, of course, which should clear up any confusion you might be having. Of course, if you're looking for real world significance or importance, here's some equations. Mass is equal to force is equal to mass times acceleration. And it should be so obvious why this matters. I'm not going to explain it to you. So let's get back to what I care about, and that is getting further into my topic. I love these equations. And look what you can do. Just with a little bit of calculus, you can put them in the following form. This is amazing stuff, ladies and gentlemen. And I should pause right here and ask, are there any questions? No questions? Let's do a derivation. All right. If I am walking into a class and I can't see what the teacher's instructing, why it matters, why it's significant, why it's relevant, if I can't see anything that's new, novel, or surprising, these are all some of the elements we'll be talking about today that are prerequisites for the brain to sit up and pay attention. If we were looking at a typical day, and again, this is for an engineering class, but you could fill in a lot of different classes here. I had some very, very hard to pay attention to history classes and philosophy classes in which sometimes people just read from a textbook. But my opening lecture, I'm feeling okay. I'm feeling fresh. 10 minutes in, if I'm in an engineering class, we have a derivation, and that's okay. I'm never quite sure why we're doing these at the undergraduate level or even in high school. Well, where am I ever going to use a derivation? Followed by some more lecture. There's a book example. Boy, that one is exciting. There's some more lecture, and of course, to end our 50-minute session, are there any questions about the lecture? And what we see is kind of human attention kind of being under assault. It's under attack. Why should I care as a student? And this problem is so prevalent, and yet it's not talked about. I'd like to help visualize this in an interactive way. We're going to be talking about just the absolute menace that mind wandering actually is for us in our professions, trying to educate students, trying to get them to connect with the material in an important way. So what I'm going to do is visualize this. Imagine for a moment that you have some errands to run here. I think this is in New York City. And you're going to be running from one location to another. It's extremely busy today. The traffic is a nightmare. There's people honking. There's people shouting. Every once in a while, you get some people shaking their fists at another fellow human as they yell some things. And you have to use this map to navigate. This is going to be your key. No GPS for you. You don't have one right now. Your cell phone's out of battery power. All you have is this map. And I've just added a couple red dots to this map. These red dots are important. They represent, just by area, a 0.06% loss of information. It's a little bit of less fidelity that you have with this map. And right now, 3 red dots don't matter at all. It's not going to affect how you navigate things. But let's go ahead and see what happens as we add a few more. So 0.18% loss information right now with 3 red dots. Here we have approximately a 5% loss of information. There's a 10% loss of information. A 15% loss of information, a 20% loss of information. There's your 30%. And finally, here's what a 40% loss of information looks like. So what I would like you to do, and you can put this in the chat, you can shout it out. If the best thing to do is if you can use the annotation tools in Zoom. So I have a little picture of it. You can use the stamp one. You can use the draw one. If you just want to mark directly on that, this works great. I can erase the drawings as we go. But I would like you to let me know which one of these represents a amount of lost information that you are most willing to put up with. How annoying of a map are you willing to use? The maximum annoyance level in which this is still going to be useful to you as you're trying to navigate this busy city. So make some marks, and I'll even go ahead and use more. We're going to hide names of annotators. That way you have complete anonymity. No one is going to judge you here. I like it when that can happen. So circle it, stamp it, call it out, put it in the chat. Let's see if we can build a little bit of a bell curve for this. All right, so I got 10%. I'm right with you on that one. A couple people on the 50, or one person on the 15, one person on the 20%. We got a couple in the chat. 50%, 20, 20. I'll make some marks just for you. So 50%, 20, 20, a 5%. Yeah, absolutely. And finally, 10%. All right, that's pretty good. All right, so have a look. Nobody wanted the 30%. Nobody was willing to put up with the 40%. Every once in a while, I get someone who's like, oh, I do the 40%. I like being visually confused. And that's fine. All right, let me clear that off for just a second. So that's what the map looks like. Those are all the maps. Let's go ahead and see why this matters a moment. So what we have in a class, and why this connects with our topic here today, it directly ties into mind wandering. We as instructors craft these beautiful puzzle pieces together. We're creating this map, this picture, this larger understanding of a topic. And when our students are mind wandering, what goes in is not always what goes through. We know from the literature, from multiple locations in the literature, that this, what we call the default circuit of the brain, something we'll define more precisely in a moment. It is associated with lower interest, lower engagement, worse grades, poor memory, and also greater student satisfaction. For those of us that put up with or get to invite student evaluations in our class, depending on how you want to look at it, this directly affects our student evaluations. The more students find themselves mind wandering, the less satisfied they actually are, no matter what class it is. And this actually gets much worse. According to a couple studies here, and there's been some more elsewhere that have done this from different points of view, but for these two, what they found is for an early live lecture, so maybe about 10 minutes into a lecture, about 3 in 10 students, if you were to randomly, buzz them and be like, was your mind wandering right now? Was your mind wandering right now? 3 out of 10 are not paying attention at any given time. And by mid-live lecture, it's about 4 in 10. And this will change. It's not like one student is just mind wandering the whole time. It comes and goes in these waves throughout your class. And if you were doing a video lecture, so all of our delicious COVID content that we had to throw together with no money most of the time and very little training, what they found was about 4 in 10 people were mind wandering by early lecture, by 10 minutes in, and then by mid lecture, it was 7 in 10. So imagine the map with 70% missing information. This is the menace to education. It's one that we don't always talk about, and yet it is a direct adversary to what our goals are for our students, no matter what classroom we happen to be in. Does that make sense? Comments, impressions? Are we agreeing why this topic is potentially important? All right. Setting up the importance of a topic is one of the techniques that we're going to be discussing at length. So I'm practicing what we're going to be talking about. So back, I had written this book in 2019, The Science of Solidarity. It's one that it sold like at least 200 copies, and I think a dozen people actually read it. But I was going to work on my second major book, which was going to be on the science of human attention. I was diving deep into the literature, looking at kind of the different kind of ideas and concepts that I could find there. And I got this partial list. I still wanted to write a book on this. It's just with COVID and extra classes and everything, it got pushed to the end of a very long list of things. But what we found, and what was found from this giant meta study, looking at human attention from all kinds of different points of view, is the following kind of ideas kept reoccurring. First, stimulus. Is there enough going on to get my attention? Is it a wall of text? Is the person speaking to me in a way that indicates that they're bored by their own words? Is there things going on? Second, do I see why what we're doing matters? Do I see why it could be potentially rewarding? Do I like it? Is it fun? Is it important? Do I care about it? Is it threatening? Am I personally responsible, or will I be personally responsible for this information someday? Then there's the beautiful ones, the things about discovery. Is it new, novel, surprising, interesting? Those are huge for capturing student attention too. And there's also a competence thing. If I really am interested in a topic, like I would love to understand more about quantum mechanics, but every time I go and they're putting up the equations, and me as a mechanical engineer and not physicist, I'm like, this is going to be a lot of work. I'm going to need to devote some time to this. I'll come back and when I get some time, and it loses me. It does what's called the brain's task appraisal shortcut. If it's too difficult, if I feel like I'm likely to fail, if it doesn't feel like it's worth my immediate time, it's harder for the brain to signal to me as the conscious driver here that I should pay attention. There's more elements to this as well, but these were the common themes that showed up again and again. And each one of these represents an opportunity for us that we can take advantage of as we are crafting our own educational interventions. Right. We are going to dive a little bit further into this. Without, of course, these things, we get our, as promised, our formal definition of mind wandering. You might think that the brain becomes less active during mind wandering, but it's actually quite vigorous. Parts of the brain that are associated with attention and focus, they do decrease. At other parts of the brain light up if you were to measure this with an fMRI machine or some other method. What we see is this vigorous mixture of freely wandering past recollections, future plans, personal thoughts, and experiences that appear, at least as far as we can tell, to be loosely linked. If you have been mind wandering just recently in here, if some idea has set you off on a path, there's actually a positive piece to mind wandering, but we'll talk about that at the end. Most forms of mind wandering appear to be quite destructive to both happiness and thriving in a classroom. Okay, so those are our elements. Again, if you want to grab a quick screenshot of this, you can. This presentation, a version of it is going to get posted online and it will be available to you. But if you want to grab it now, just so you have it, there it is. All right. So what can we do? One of the things I do, I was a tenured professor at UW-Platteville, University of Wisconsin-Platteville. I loved it there. I was loving the classes I was teaching. I adored our students. I had colleagues that I truly enjoyed. It was great. And last year, I gave it all up to come work for the Kern Foundation on entrepreneurial mindset, which is not entrepreneurship, but it's about looking at how do we bring opportunity recognition and impact into the classroom. And the reason why I was willing to give up my cushy forever job to come work at a Sunset Foundation, which is guaranteed to have me back on the job market probably within the decade, if not sooner, is because of the ideas of it. What we have with what we call entrepreneurial mindset, which is not entrepreneurship, it's something that really is for everyone, no matter what you're teaching, actually addresses so many of these elements that you see on the screen now. So what I would like to do is, as we're working on how we can combat this and what we can do, I'd like to kind of show you what our perspective is for how we can combat mind wandering and capture attention of our students, no matter if they're interested in a variety of different things or not, how we can capture attention more consistently. All right. Is there a cure to mind wandering? What I would like to ask all of you is the following question, and feel free to put some of these ideas in chat. What do you want your students to do? What class are you teaching next? And when students leave this class, whatever it is, what do you want them to actually be able to do? If I was asking this to engineers, as you're thinking, a lot of my engineering students, if you were to ask them as a junior, they would say, well, I wanted to design something. Or they'd say that, I'm gonna solve a problem. And you ask them about the kind of problem, they're like, a technical problem. And what I would like to suggest is actually for engineers, it's a terrible answer. It's an important answer, but it actually is a terrible answer, at least by itself. But let's hear from you real quick. What class are you teaching? You can throw it in the chat, you can shout it out. What class are you teaching, and what do you want students to be able to do? How do you want them to think about problems? How do you want them to think about judgments? How do you want them to be able to use what you're teaching when they leave your class? All right, we got a first chat one. Yeah, all right, good. Coming in, right in the chat. You got to give that question a few seconds because it's a big one. They're inquisitive, senior design engineering. College freshmen, your academic journey, I want them to be able to manage their time. Yeah, would that be? Yes, absolutely. Students and time management. Ideally apply what they're learning to novel situations. Yeah, for sure. Able to converge an open-ended problem. Able to converge, yeah. To make solid statements and ideas on their own and be able to mediate, figure out real versus fake. Celebrate creativity and new ideas. These are great answers. All of these answers that you have, there's definitely a technical component to them, but a lot of your answers are about, well, a lot of them have these mindset type elements in here. What I would like to suggest, and even boldly suggest, is what we are interested in our students doing is, in general, we want them to create value. Graduates, to creates value, create value. Sorry for the grammatical error. We'll be talking about the English and grammar here side in a moment. On this next slide, we're going to be talking about this. There may be a consistent mental model that can help our students more consistently create value. And if we use this mental model in our classes, it also addresses so many of the major elements that are required for human attention. And when we're talking about value, it's this big, giant, general word. We're talking about context-specific value. And it could mean a lot of different things. Sometimes for our context, we want our students to create educational value. Sometimes if they're in an art class or a philosophy class, we want them to understand some kind of personal value, something that's going to help them live their lives in a way that makes them feel better and makes their lives go better. There could be a societal value piece or an environmental value. For example, again, this is themed towards engineers because that is my background. We have rivers and lakes here in Wisconsin, and I'm hoping you don't have too many of them in Minnesota, but in Wisconsin, we have these signs, these warning signs in our lakes and rivers, on several of them, that says, do not eat more than one fish caught here per month. And you wonder if you should eat any of the fish from this lake or river. The reason we have this problem is because of the judgments of engineers and people who worked in the factories here in Wisconsin from decades past. They made decisions that failed to create economic value. They made some kind of value for themselves, but the environmental value piece was missing. There could be consumer value, economic value, cultural value. It's always context specific. And I want to give you some examples. That way it makes more sense. We'll do an engineering example, we'll do an English example, we'll do a software example, we'll come back for a mechanical engineering type example, and then we'll see how we can use this concept in our own classes to help capture student attention. So what the mantra is no matter what we're teaching, there's always going to be an intersection of other ideas. And when students are making judgments and decisions at the intersection of these ideas, they're going to more consistently create value. The potential for value creation and impact is only found in the center. So bear with me a second. Let's say I'll do an engineering example first because, again, that's my bias. Let's say that you have a civil engineer, and the civil engineer has learned all of these technical skills, and they're learning how to build structures that won't fall down. They're learning to mitigate resonance from the wind. They're learning to dampen vibrations from people stomping over their bridge. And they create this footbridge over a highway because people are road runnering across the highway, risking life and limb. And they create this technically sound bridge, a footbridge that goes across the freeway. If they are making their solution only in this red solution space, and it's not in this intersection, well, if they create a bridge that is structurally sound, it's not going to fall down, it can resist resonance from the wind, it's properly dampened, it's a great footbridge, but it's in a location that's so inconvenient for the public that they don't use it and continue to run across freeways, risking life and limb. They have failed to consistently create value. All they've done is waste money building this bridge. If they create a structurally sound structure, which we need, and it's in a convenient location, but it is causing, a stream or a river or drain off pipe to get diverted, and now water is carving its way through farmers' fields, they've again failed to consistently create value. All right, let's do an English one. So if I am teaching students English, and engineers don't always got the great words when they string them together. And I'm teaching them about good grammar and good sentence structure. And I send them out and say, all right, I've taught you English, go out and use this. And they're searching for their solutions in this entire red circle. Well, a lot of their solutions are going to leave out the importance, the relevance, and also what resonates with an audience. What I would suggest is if you're trying to consistently get students to create value, to have this potential for value creation and impact, then it has to be at the intersection of what the students care about and what their audience cares about. If it's not at that intersection, their audience isn't going to pay attention. And just being aware that these other things exist can make all the difference. I want you to learn good grammar and sentence structure, but I'm going to teach it in a way that also brings in how you can create value with this, why this matters, why this is important, why this will change the course of your career by coming in my classroom and listening to what we're going to do. When we bring in those elements, it brings in that the rewards, the importance, and the stimulus, those other elements that are required for students to not just pay attention, but want to pay attention. It's about intrinsic motivation. This model is not just about value creation and getting students to create value more consistently, but it also captures their attention. Right? If I have something that my audience cares about, maybe I'm talking about Ted Lasso, and it's structured well, but my message ultimately has no importance, it doesn't matter, then my audience is probably going to take nothing away from what I'm talking about. Maybe they're just entertained. But if I want to consistently create value, I would love to capture what they care about in a technically structured, sound way that also is going to have some kind of greater impact. If I want to create that value, it's got to be at the intersection of more ideas than just technical. Right? Here's a software one. I don't know if any of you get to teach programming in high school or college. Mechanical engineers, at least some of the ones I've met at Platteville, really resistant. But if we are trying to teach them how to make a good program, and they're only making a good program in this solution space and has a terrible user experience, ultimately, if they do that out in industry or for a company or for a client, it's going to fail to create value. If they have the best user interface and it's technically sound, but it compromises everyone's data, it will not create value consistently. So part of our job as educators is first identifying what are the other context-specific elements, these circles that are important, and then can we bring them directly into our classrooms? Because when students understand the importance, the relevance, the significance of what they're learning, it changes their relationship with the educational process. Okay. We've probably now beaten this one as much as we need to beat it up. But as an engineer, if I'm looking at trying to make a good product, then the customer has to want it. It has to be technically feasible, and it has to be sustainable from a business point of view. And that's just kind of the way it goes. One of the things for my engineers that are out there that are teaching engineering in higher education, here's something that just kills me. One of my colleagues had said, this is one of the great educational insanities of how we train engineers. We train them to avoid failure, so failure avoidance and technical feasibility, to search for solutions just in this one red circle. But what we don't teach them is how to recognize opportunity, how to know they're identifying the right opportunity at the right time. How do they know they're solving the right problem? How do they know they're connecting information in a way that will create value? How do they even think about creating context-specific value? And then sometimes we also need to be also at least mindful of the marketable and the sustainability of our solutions as well. It always depends. Very quick example. And this is a little bit of a selfish one, but it will help with the whole kind of the rest of this, I think. It'll be a good end cap for this part of it. My first engineering solution. I was working on these factory ships in Alaska, and I'd been working my way through my technical skills, and I was trained to find technical solutions in this one red circle. If it was technically sound, that was my job, period. And I got to my first kind of thing, and the chief engineer who had been working for something like 40 years was like, all right, you give this a try. Go ahead, see what you can do. I'm looking, all right, so we're crossing the Gulf of Alaska, we're somewhere out there, and I've got to connect this piece to this piece, and there's no hardware store. You can't just pull over and go into a Walmart or an Ace Hardware, Menards or something. You have to use what you have. And so I'm working through it, and I'm seeing what we have, and I'm all right, I'll put this thing here and I'll put this thing here, and I can't figure out how to connect this. I'll reroute it this way, and I drew the whole thing out, and I was so proud of the solution. It was technically feasible. This would work. And when the chief engineer saw it, he was like, what are you doing? This is way too complicated. You're going to do this. And this is, you're going to have these head losses right here, which are unnecessary. And you're going to do this. And you're using too many of our limited resources. And I was mortified because I thought I had been trained correctly to solve solutions that were technically sound. And it would have worked, but it didn't take into account the other intersections that would have actually created context-specific value for this situation. All right. What I would like to do, now that we've talked about this, now that we've started to think about this, we'll skip ahead a little bit here, is what are these intersections? So we've gotten a few ideas on the board. We've started to think about this. What are you teaching? And if you were to break this into 2 circles, 3 circles, 10 circles, whatever it is, there may not be 3. 3 is just used for visualization purposes here. But can we dive deeper into this idea of what you want students to walk away with? More specifically, what intersection of ideas do students need to consistently create value after they leave your class? And we'll take a few minutes to look at this too. I know we already have some answers in the chat. If you want to revise, if you want to talk about it, but what is your course, your topic, whatever it is, and can we dive just a little bit deeper thinking about it with this mental model? All right, ethics, technical feasibility and safety. First one in the chat. That ethics one is always interesting. Do you want to empower someone with a mindset that can create impact if they're not an ethical person? Sometimes with civil engineers, I get the triple bottom line: people, planet, and profit. Yeah, that contextualized learning, the real world relatability for all students right from the chat. How do we contextualize what they are doing? Time and time. You'll have to give me a little bit more of an explanation. I would be curious.
We're asked to cover standards. We're asked to go into depth. We're asked to account for variations such as assemblies, programs, send-offs, all of that kind of thing. And our time has been cut back 7 minutes per class period.
Yeah. I hear that. We'll be talking about the time problem when it comes to this in a moment. It's an important consideration. Yeah, the fact that standards are changing and little to no support. Sorry, Sam, I feel you. Good. Keep thinking about this. If you got other ideas, put them in the chat as we go. We'll circle back as appropriate. Let me get on to something, and then we'll get back specifically to, I've got some other interactive ideas for us to play with. But here at the Kern Foundation, what we have is what we call this entrepreneurial mindset. And our opinion on this is something that engineers need, but it's something that resonates with all kinds of folks. It's capturing human attention by bringing the both the impact of the education, so the significance and relevance of what we're teaching, and helping students contextualize that and understand it. But it's also about identifying opportunities. And we have folks that are on our website, which I'll pull up in a moment, that are from all kinds of different disciplines. We have artists that are on our engineering website because they're interested in the question of how do you add opportunity recognition and impact to art education. We have folks from English, we have folks from history, we have folks from all over the place. And of course, a whole lot of engineers as well. It is called Engineering Unleashed, but anyone is welcome to join it. It's no cost to join. And we'll see there's a whole lot of resources that you might consider checking out. But part of our mindset, kind of the vehicle behind this, it's called the 3 C's: curiosity, connections, and creating value. And if we're going to be talking about this mental model and how it relates to human attention, let me just run you through this real quick. Curiosity is about getting students to discover, to be aware, to understand the importance of other concerns beyond the strictly technical pieces that we need to teach them. Once they're exploring and understanding and aware of these concerns, connections is about leading them to the intersections where the potential for value creation and impact actually reside. When we can bring in these elements into our classroom, we will help our students more consistently understand why it matters, why it's personally rewarding for them, why they are personally responsible, and how they can go out and not make the mistakes that so many of us engineers did who are only trained with technical skills, ones who can understand what it means to create context-specific value. Right. If you want to do this, we call this entrepreneurially minded learning, and it really is for everyone, although it starts with, it was started by a group of engineers. Entrepreneurially minded learning is about starting with good pedagogy, a technical topic from a single class, bringing in some kind of new element, opportunity recognition. What are the opportunities of what we're learning? What if we took what we learned and applied it in society, and society did something differently? What are the impacts of this? What we're doing this way, and yet theory shows us that this thing I'm teaching you, we could have done it this other way. It could have gone the other way. What would what's the contrarian kind of point of view of this? Should we have done things differently? Can we use what we're learning in our class to help to manage risk in the future? Can we bring in the ethical ramifications of what would happen if someone used this incorrectly out in society? What would happen? Or we can strengthen other inherent elements of mindset of these different elements directly in our class. So these are examples of how we could bring what we call entrepreneurially minded learning to whatever class we're teaching. Take with that technical topic, we have no time to not teach the technical topics that we have to teach, especially in engineering. There is zero time to throw out any of the derivations or examples that we need to do. So if we're going to do this and capture student attention, we can do it all at the same time, or just about at the same time. I'll give you this real quick, and then I promise we're going to move on to something more interesting. This is the me talking too much section. Sorry about that. Entrepreneurially minded learning, EML, employing these 3 C's: curiosity, connections, creating value, exploring the spaces, finding the intersections, and then designing our solutions in that solution space, or making our judgments in that solution space that has the greatest impact for value creation and impact. The 3 C's significantly enhance student engagement by providing these intriguing frameworks for their studies, examples coming, demonstrating the relevance and significance of their learning, immersing them in novel situations and surprising outcomes, and fostering an increased competence, thus fueling them to greater career heights. All right, yeah, we got that. Opportunity, recognition, curiosity. If we're going to see this, we need some examples, but we also need to do more than just listen to me talk. So let's do a quick activity. Again, just kind of capture this from one other point of view. This is an interesting one for getting students to think about, do they even want to come to our class? Should they pay attention in our class? Why should it even matter? And then we'll look at some specific examples of how these ideas might be expressed for technical content in a classroom. All right. We'll come back right to this. I just keyed up this activity, and that's what I want to do. All right. 4 doors activity. That's the one I want to go to first. What I would like you to do is to pick a door, any door. And I need to make you some promises before you do this. First, I'm not trying to trick you with these doors. There's no one who's going to pull the rug out from under you. You'll see what I mean as we go. There's no tricks to this. Doing this with academics, though, they like to test it to see, and it's always hilarious to do this activity with academics. Students are much more consistent, but we'll see how you do. With your annotation tools or in the chat, mark a door. Which door do you want to go through? Right now, you're a new student. You're coming into a class. You have no idea what this class is going to be. You might be excited to come in this class. And we are going to explore what you are about to get out of this class symbolically. Okay, we got some door number 1s. We got some door number 2s. We got some door number 3s. I don't have any door number 4s. Okay, I have a door number 4. Yeah, all right, very good. All right, we got the thing. You ready for this? This is what your semester, the rest of your semester is going to look like if you continue to go through this door as a student. This is what you can expect. So for door number 1, you get a marker. That's nice. For door number 2, you get someone who may be just relating personal stories the entire time. Absolutely nothing. For door number 3, symbolically, you are getting a fine dinner. And for door number 4, you are sweeping all the floors at your current institution. Okay, let's do this again. Give me a door, any door. What door attracts you? What door do you want to explore this time? Door number 1, door number 3, door number 4. No door number 2s this time. Oh, we got a door number 2. Excellent. All right, good. We got one of each at least. All right, let's do this again. So maybe the first time was a fluke. Door number 1, you get a pencil. For those that chose door number 2, you got more inane stories, which may not relate anything that you care about to anything. Door number 3, you are getting, it's this beautiful waterfall at the end of this nice fall summer day through the forest. And for door number 4, you get to take out all the trash at your university. All right, so you've come to class, for week 2 now, and you've seen kind of what you can expect. Choose a door, any door. I got someone who's choosing no doors. They were not impressed with the dinner or the walk on the beach or the pencils or the nothing or the chores. I respect your decision. Oh man, someone is wanting to do the door number 4 for sure. All right, let's see it. I'm promising you, we're consistent here. You get a crayon for door number 1, so your art collection is still woefully incomplete. You get absolutely nothing for door number 2. For door number 3, you get to watch puppies playing on the beach. And for door number 4, you're going to do all the dishes after lunch today, again, for your institution. Students pick up very quickly what they can expect coming to our classes. Is there anything new? Is there anything novel? Is there anything surprising? Are we exploring these ideas in a way that feels relevant and important? Because students don't know the bigger picture. Some of them will, but most of them don't. They're just learning. They haven't worked out in the real world. They haven't seen why communication matters, why sentence structure matters. They don't understand why learning integration by parts is something that can be relevant to them. And actually, for that one, maybe it's a bad example. I've still never used integration by parts, but I don't tell my students that. Maybe there's an example of that one that'll be useful someday. I'm still waiting. Jury is still out. But very quickly, they get a feel for this. And this matters. When they are choosing, should I do the homework in this class? Should I come to this class prepared to learn? Should I just come to this class knowing this is a good time to check my email on my phone underneath the table or play whatever game students are currently playing on their mobile devices? I think Fortnite is now finally died down a bit. Whatever it is, this is how we are preparing them. Whether we realize it or not, they are prepared for this. All right, and I got a whole bunch of ones in the chat. Sorry I didn't mark it. I should have done that in real time. hard to imagine they could talk at the same time. All right. And we could even do this again. Door number 1, door number 2, door number 3, door number 4. What I would suggest is students not just learn about this, but this affects actually how much time they're willing to put on our classes too. If our classes, so I have an online asynchronous class, which is jam-packed with novel discoveries, curious questions, tools that you can build and then immediately apply at your job, things that are always connected to the relevance and the significance of it. And a third of my students, when the lectures go live on Tuesday, they do a week's worth of stuff by that Tuesday night. They put off other classes and other responsibilities and other things they can have fun because they want to go through this door. They see the rewarding parts of what I'm trying to teach them. I'm teaching the same theory as everyone else. We're just framing it and signaling it in a way that students get excited about. That's what we mean by this. Okay, so let me ask this. I'll put it to a vote here. I did a bit of talking. Do we have thoughts on this? Do we want to discuss this? Because we have kind of 2 paths we can take. We'll probably get to both of them here. We can either see some examples of some technical content, getting these ideas of opportunity and impact and what it does to the student process. Or we can go explore a website where a whole lot of people have done a lot of different ideas. We can put in a bunch of different topics into the website and see if faculty from across the country have published something on here. And it's an invitation for you to publish too. There's some interesting things with that. Do we care? First person who shouts out something, that's what we're doing. I got the chat open. Website or some of the examples that I use in my class? Or discussion?
Your examples.
Okay. All right. You got it, Carl. Coming up. So here's one of the classes I've got. I've got mechanical engineers. I'm teaching prototyping and programming with microcontrollers. So Arduinos, essentially. And this was several years ago where Arduinos were still a little shinier than maybe they are now. But we needed to get students to do the following things. And I inherited this suggested homework problem. So for the first week, they get their little microcontrollers, they learn how to make a little circuit, we do examples in class, we talk about the big picture of it. And then for the first weekend, we want them to go out and do something. So go light up some LEDs, do the Hello World version with LEDs and microcontrollers. And this is interesting for students to do for about 3 seconds. They make the thing, they light up the LEDs, they look at it, they go, oh, that's interesting, and they put it away, and that's it for the week. It's important. It's filling, it's needed, it's necessary, but it's an academic hoop. Here's what we did. Here's what I did. And these examples, by the way, I'm showing some of my best examples. The rest of the examples from my class are not as shiny and flashy as this, but this is definitely illustrative. So just keep that in mind. Got my technical objectives. I need to cover these. I don't have time to do anything but cover these, but I can bring in some other elements at the same time. So I'd like to introduce you to 2 characters. Students have never seen this slide. They never will, but I created this specifically actually just for you. I have Mr. Boss and a reoccurring difficult personality across my classes called Mr. Rich Rainerson, Mr. RR. He's a mid-level manager. Sometimes he gets a promotion, but he often gets demoted right afterwards. He's a typical difficult personality. And I use him as a mechanism to get students to learn how to deal with difficult personalities because, frankly, difficult personalities are everywhere. And for students to learn to be polite and professional adds a new element, something interesting that appeals to students. And if it wasn't there, we wouldn't have the same effect. By the way, Mr. Rich Rainerson is a reoccurring villain across most of my classes. All my classes are loosely connected by this ongoing narrative, and he's all part of the extended McLanahan educational universe. Okay. Here's the text that I added to the homework, and then we'll see what this did for student attention, engagement, and how they related to the educational process. So before we had some technical problems, we had some calculations they made, and then at the end of this first homework, this is what they saw. Mr. Boss, you know what I love? The boss leans back in the chair as he says it, not really waiting for your answer. Fireworks, he grins. But you know the problem with fireworks indoors? He looks remorseful for a moment. The actual fire and the ear-drumming piercing sound and the choking and punks that won't stay lit, and he continues for several minutes before saying, all that means one thing, opportunity. Here's what I want you to see. I want you to create a digital firework without the fire. You have until Tuesday to prototype me a miniature digital firework display. Get creative. You only have a few LEDs to work with. Make it pulse, make it dance. I don't care, but let me see this idea. Give me the flavor of an LED firework. And I didn't have to include this next paragraph, but I really wanted to discuss difficult personalities, limited resources, bring in these other real world elements that my engineers would eventually need to deal with. And I wanted them thinking about it right now in this class for exposure for what we were going to go on to do. Mr. Rich Anderson approaches you as well, and he has something to say. You know what I like to do? Firing, and not the chemical reaction kind either. I don't know why the boss thinks this is a good idea, but I'm going to be seeing about shutting you all down when I get around to it. We could really use those funds for other things. Mr. Rich Anderson suddenly turns and leaves as if he forgot he was talking to you, as all difficult personalities should. All right. I sat back and I waited to see what would happen. My class distribution was about 50% traditional students and 50% adult students who were doing the job of an engineer just without the degree or without the pay. So 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds. And I really wasn't sure what would happen. And maybe I shouldn't have been worried. Here's a sample of student results. So instead of just lighting up a few LEDs, students went to town on this. I got emails asking about functions we hadn't covered yet and were never going to cover because they were trying to get their prototype to act in a certain way. All of the projects were great, but these three are my favorite. Let me share sound so you have that. This is what I mean by these elements can completely change the student's relationship to the educational process. When they feel they're working on something that is new, novel, surprising, or potentially important, or that they're personally responsible for, it is engaging. It's right in the literature. It's all over in the literature. It's just up to us to figure out how we can express this in a context-specific way for the disciplines we are teaching. Okay. Thoughts on this? Impressions, ideas? And while you're thinking, let me pull up our website. So this is Engineering Unleashed. It's the hub of what's called the Kern Entrepreneurial Engineering Network. And it is a network of universities that are committed to adding what we call entrepreneurial mindset. So not entrepreneurship, but these ideas of opportunity recognition and impact, of value creation, and finding those intersections and making students aware of it, bringing that directly into the classroom. I'll give you a quick view of what this is, what is Keen. We can do what is Keen. I want to view partners right after this. Let me just view partners. It's competitive. Not all schools can get in. We reject schools all the time. It's invite only. But what we have here is a collection of universities that are committed to these ideas, to bringing this to undergraduate students. And there might be names you recognize. I suspect actually there is, for sure. Not all people working at these universities are even aware they're part of this network, but there's a team on every single one of these campuses. Some places like WPI, it's expanded and diffused all over the place. Other schools are just starting their entrepreneurially minded educational journey, but it's all over the country. And anyone can use the ideas and contribute to the ideas that this network is working on. So this is a network that has made commitments, but the resources are available to anyone, and anyone can contribute ideas. Can I get some kind of concept, professional skill, something, not necessarily related to engineering, and we will just see if anything comes up. You can get an obscure topic that won't give us anything, but chances are we'll find something that you might find that you could directly use in your class. I'll put the link into chat, and just so you know, oh, good, there's a good question in chat. Let's we'll get to that in just a second. I need a topic. We could do
simulations, computer simulations.
think we're going to get quite a few from those. There's 51 cards. So what a card is, it's a publication that comes from someone in our community. Anyone can make them. And when you do make one, if we were to do this by views, some of these cards have, over 1,000 views. There's one that has 800, there's 567, there's one that has 400. These get viewed, shared, and used. If you're interested in what one of these looks like, let me head back. We'll get the top relevance example, live virtual demo in the class using computer simulation tools. What you get is something that looks like the following: an image, some mindset elements. So how are we going to engage students with these professional skills? The skill set elements. They'll have some kind of, of course, some summary, description. We can click on any of the authors. So this is from ASU, Northern Arizona State University. You can go and email the kind of the creator of the card directly. They tend to love to discuss their own work. Learning objectives, instructor tips. And then often, although not always, there's student samples of work, quiz questions, homework questions, in-class concept questions, rubrics, that kind of stuff. And here we just have one supporting document for this particular card. If we go to a different one, computer programming for makers, we'll get a different person with a different focus, doing some different things. So Jim is down in Florida. He does a lot of publications. And he's got a 2-hour LabVIEW introduction. So here's a training module on LabVIEW if you hadn't access to it. And then here's an introduction for Arduinos, one that is going to be friendly to what he's doing. Lots of resources. You can cite these. So they're citable if you care about that kind of thing. You can save the whole thing as a PDF. You can share it with other people. And you can even get these peer reviewed. There's a peer review button when you create one. What this is it forms a library. As you come up with ideas, it's not always easy to figure out how to add relevance and significance to some concept that you're teaching. But once you do, and you share this, this contributes to transforming how the student experience happens throughout America. Okay. We are right about at the hour mark. I don't know if there's another topic we want to throw in. Otherwise, we have some discussion elements, and we can even see if we can create one of our own if we're interested in this. Anything else you want me to search? There was a chat one too. Let me make sure I'm not missing something with chemistry for sure. Engineering activities for kindergartners. That would be interesting. I know we do have some of those outreach activities that get published. Okay, so for chemistry, there's 83 cards. There's 42 members that list chemistry. So if you're looking for collaborators, this is a group of folks that like to collaborate. There's 15 forum posts. There's a whole group building entrepreneurial mindset learning foundations in STEM. Yeah, it's a good one. I want to put in this other one here, apps for iPad. Yes, definitely. Engineering activities for kindergarten, that got hearted too. I don't think we're going to get much, but I would love to know. If we don't get much, then there is an opportunity here. So I have one forum with icebreakers in it, has 110 views and 1 favorite. That's the only thing that comes up with this particular combination of words. And what this means is there's an opportunity. If you have activities that would fit this for developing, this could make a good contribution to the website so other people could see it. All right. Oh, yeah. Okay, so my students don't have stuff or budget to purchase things. So for their Arduino's class, they had a kit. We can look at an example. Actually, I do have actually a high school example we could look at too. That one might be really good for this group. It works at both college level and the high school level, and it might be a good one too. Let me see. Which one of these? We can do this one real quick. This one is both on the student engagement side, but it's also on the value creation in particular side. This one was one that I got invited to do this last year. They invited me to be a customer. So what they want to do is take some students and for those students, they wanted them to kind of prototype some different ideas just out of basic things: cardboard, tape, scotch tape. We'll get to the material free one in a second. Sorry, I'm jumping around a little bit as I'm balancing the different comments from the chat. This one, take basic things and do a basic prototype of this kind of idea. So the idea was there's a farm to table company that wants to combine an egg delivery service with a paper route. They want to deliver fresh eggs to people's doors. People can order these eggs according to how many they want, and they're dropped off fresh from the chickens right on the door. And that would be kind of the idea. And what the students were invited to do was to create a better egg carton, if they could, than the standard egg carton. So what's wrong with a standard egg carton? Well, it's not very secure. If you bump it together too much, the eggs often break. They were looking for something to get students to explore this idea. So for engineering students, this is what we do. They focused on the technical side of things. They would come in and talk to me as a customer. They would go prototype and then come talk to me again to show off kind of where their ideas were. And this is a 3D recreation of the type of solution I would get from students. I would ask them what the value proposition was, and they'd be like, what's a value proposition? I'd be like, okay, what do I tell my stakeholders about why they should use your solution versus an egg cart? And they would be like, oh, okay, well, it's safe. It's lined with inexpensive cotton for protection. It's secure. The sliding lid is more secure than a typical egg carrier. It's roomy, easily carries a dozen eggs. It's convenient, multiple handles to prevent dropping. What I would like to suggest to the 15 of us in this room is there's at least 4 major ideas, 4 intersecting circles that students have not thought about that will completely destroy this company if they put this solution into practice. And making students aware of this absolutely changed everything. I had to think about this a few weeks to figure out what these these circles were, and I'm inviting you to see if you can think of a few of these in the next minute. But what are the major things that are going to absolutely destroy a company? Where's the system thinking level that students needed to bring in order to make something that would actually create value? And sure, we could shorten the handles a little bit. That's a small thing. We want the big ones. Okay, we've got stackability and scale for shipping. Stackability for sure. There's a cost one. Good. Environmental impact. Are these reusable? I would ask students if they're reusable, and they would be like, they'd think for a moment and be like, yes, of course it's reusable. And that actually brings up one of our issues. So maybe it could work if we could reuse them, but there's another issue if these are going to be reusable. Okay, will people reuse them? Maybe people won't reuse them. Successful prototyping, good. How to remove eggs easily. Oh my gosh, I almost never get that one. And that's definitely one of our 4. Dirty, not cleanable. There it is. We've got 3 of them right now. And we might have 4 because of the people won't reuse them. The delivery method, yeah, there's some questions there too. You guys did amazing. Actually, you have beaten me in the minute here than I had in my 2 weeks of thinking about this once I saw the first ones. So this is what students thought of their designs. At first, they were asking only technical questions. And I would start asking them better questions to get them thinking about it. All right, well, here's your initial sketch. How do I ship it? Because if I can't stack these, and I now need to have 2 trucks or 4 trucks to deliver the same amount of these, you've just destroyed my company because shipping costs are going to be too much. You're not thinking about how we're going to actually distribute this as a system. How do I clean these? That was a great one from the chat. If I need to clean these when eggs break, I'm going to have to hire someone to wash each one of these out. I'm going to have a storage room that I rent out in order to dry them, and then I have to have someone else come back to bring them back out in order to load them for distribution. You've just destroyed my company because I cannot afford these other elements. Nobody, almost nobody. I've only had this happen twice. Good job on the loading question, because this is only 2 people have ever gotten this in probably the dozen groups I've presented this particular segment to. How do I load this? You're going to hold this box in one hand, slide the lid backwards, which shifts the center of mass backwards, causing the whole thing to try to tip. Reach in with 3 fingers to try to grab a slippery egg. You've just destroyed my company because it takes too long to load and unload these. And of course, who's going to use them? This is the 4th one. There's probably more, but there I have this box kind of in the bottom of the refrigerator. That's about to scale. How is anyone actually going to use this? Why aren't we thinking about the customer? And when students started thinking about these other elements, first, it was more of a challenge. It brought in more stimulus, it brought in more ideas, and it brought in the fact that they are going to be personally responsible for the success of this company based on their design. And it changed the value proposition that we got from what it was before. All of a sudden, it was unsanitary, lined with an unwashable germ-collecting medium. It's awkward, requires 3 hands to load and unload. It's massive, won't fit in the typical fridge. It's unwieldy, almost impossible to stack for distribution. The solutions that students came up with afterwards, I swear, some of them actually could have worked. They were more secure than an egg carton, and they addressed some of the both the shuffling around things. These are activities we can do for very little money, and they help students understand the greater context and relevance of what we're trying to do it. And when the students are thinking beyond the walls of our classroom, they will surprise us almost every time. All right. Good. There's other examples too. If you want one more quick one, and then I'd love to go ahead and talk about impact, and then we're all set for any discussions or questions we want to have. Let me pull up, let me see if I have one more of these to pull up. I might just have to describe it to you. I don't think I have the slides available right here. But for students in a lab class, we run these labs and students go through the procedure. They create the graph, they use the equation in the book, and they write the standard questions. And that's how students have done labs for a long time. We wondered if we could make these more engaging by making students personally responsible for a situation that would be more interesting or curious. And so instead of the lab manuals, we threw them out and we rewrote them as a series of letters from this dysfunctional company called Compressor Overflow Inc., totally made up company. And the letters would describe these problems that the company was having in their factory. They had given us some equipment that students could explore these problems, but they needed actual data, evidence-based rationales and recommendations for what they should do to solve these problems. So, for example, let me not do the most complicated one because I have a mixed audience. I don't know. Maybe this. I'll just have to give you one of these. One of these, actually, one of my favorites. There was a heating element, and if you have a heating element in liquid and you boil with it, the heating element transfers the heat directly to the liquid. The liquid is touching the heating element. There's great heat transfer. If you boil something too fast, what will happen is you will create this vapor around the heating element. And this vapor layer across the heating element, it reduces the amount of heat transfer because instead of being in contact with the liquid, it's insulated by this big thing of liquid. It's called a critical boiling. And so students didn't know what critical boiling was. What they received is this emergency letter from Compressor Overflow saying, we have these boilers in our factory and they're failing. The heating element suddenly just rapidly begins overheating and fails without the liquid heating up at all. How is this even possible? We have a unit. It has some safety shut-off switches. We need you to investigate this and figure out what are our circumstances, where is it safe to run it, what are the operating conditions, and why this is happening. And so students would have to explore, to think. They were personally responsible for this problem. And the results we got from students having to explore this and think about this, design the experiments, determine how many measurements they wanted to make and how many measurements they would need to convince themselves that they were designing a safe procedure, absolutely changed it. It became students' favorite class. They would hate the first one, and then they would fall into a rhythm and be like, oh, with the instructor's help and with some tips and some hints, we got through it. Let's explore. It was this challenge that added in so many of the elements that we know are important to us from the literature. The elements of stimulus, the why it matters, the importance, the discovery, the curiosity. And because I was right there as the on-site consultant to help students work through their things, help them head in the right direction, it was me moderating the difficulty based on what student group I had for what project. All right, I have one more segment here, and then I would love to get any of your ideas, questions, impressions, whatever you want to share. We saw some ideas. Some of these are from my classroom. We saw some from Engineering Unleashed. And we have this invitation that's on the table for any of you to come join us on Engineering Unleashed. Come share your ideas on how you can take an idea, you can bring in other elements that will help students more consistently create value and share them with the rest of us. We are in the process of transforming education, specifically engineering education, but it's having a residual effect on other fields throughout the country. This is 300 Lego figures. It's about 300. I got tired of counting them once they all got blurry in the background. If you created a card and you shared it on our website and it was picked up by just 5 instructors, over the course of a year, those 5 instructors and your idea that you shared is going to transform the student experience of 900 students. This is what this looks like. If you were to share this experience and these instructors like it and they use it year after year, so we have 5 instructors over the course of a decade, you have just impacted 90,000 student experiences beyond your own classroom. Sometimes we get a particularly good card that is adopted by 50 instructors. And if you have a particularly good idea that as our platform, which already has about 5,400 users, I think we might be at 55. It's been growing exponentially these last few years. If 50 instructors pick up one of your ideas, then over the course of a decade, each one of those boxes represents 300 students. You have just impacted 90,000 students. We are in the business here at Engineering Unleashed and at the Kern Family Foundation of absolutely transforming engineering education and education in general. And of course, we're not in the business of just one card that's picked up by 50 instructors. We are in the business of millions of student experiences. If you would like to be part of this movement that is growing, please come join us in Engineering Unleashed. Send me an email. I'd love to hear from you. Write a card, publish a card, share some ideas, and be part of this exciting movement that's happening throughout the country right now. We are experiencing exponential growth that we've never seen before as this movement has been picked up and adopted by more and more institutions. All right. This has been our introduction to the science of human attention. There's so much more we could talk about. We could spend hours on this, but these are the most salient points that I have for you in a virtual format here today. If you have any questions, I'd love to take them. And thank you.
Raise my hand. I have a question if nobody else does.
And Jason, maybe we could even stop recording. That way people are just free to ask whatever questions they have. I never want to ask questions when it's recording. That's me.
Yeah, that sounds good. I will do that right now. Yeah.